Today, we uncover the massive government crackdown on the legendary Carby Loophole and the 5 engine swap traps that are getting Aussie street machines permanently defected and towed off our roads. Stay with me to the end, because I guarantee the aftermarket parts sitting in your online shopping cart right now are secretly a one-way ticket to a cancelled registration, and I will show you exactly how to legally swap your engine without the highway patrol destroying your dream build. For decades, the Aussie backyard mechanic was a cultural icon. We were told that building a tough street car in your shed was an Australian rite of passage. You grab a Holden Commodore or a Ford Falcon, pull out the tired old motor, drop in a massive V8, bolt a carburetor to the top, and cruise the streets on a Saturday night. But here is the part nobody talks about. The Australian government and local transport authorities have quietly launched a brutal, systematic war against the modified car scene. State regulators like Transport for New South Wales and VicRoads realised that backyard builders were using the Carby loophole. They were retrofitting old-school carburettors onto modern engines like the LS or the Barra to bypass complex electronic fuel injection wiring and emissions controls. So they changed the rules of the game. Today, ultra-strict Australian design rules, aggressive Environmental Protection Authority noise and emissions testing, and a total zero-tolerance policy have turned the classic engine swap into a legal minefield. It is a systemic problem. You are spending $10,000 or $15,000 on engine parts, only to be handed a yellow defect sticker by a police officer the moment you pull out of your driveway. Let us pull back the curtain on the 5 worst traps in the Carby loophole that are ripping off Aussie car builders right now. Number 1. The LS, Carby intake manifold illusion. The Chevy LS V8 is the undisputed king of Australian engine swaps. You find them swapped into everything from old Nissan Patrols to classic Holden Kingswoods. But wiring up a modern electronic fuel injection system with its oxygen sensors, mass airflow meters, and complex ECU harnesses is incredibly intimidating and expensive. So, aftermarket companies sell the ultimate shortcut: the LS Carby conversion kit. You buy a cast aluminum intake manifold that bolts directly onto your modern LS engine, allowing you to slap a traditional 4-barrel carburetor right on top. But read the fine print on the regulations, and you will see why this is a financial death trap. By Australian law, when you swap an engine, the vehicle must meet the emission standards of the engine's year of manufacture or the chassis's year, whichever is strictly newer. Here is what that actually means for your build. A modern LS engine was legally certified to run with precise computer-controlled fuel injection and catalytic converters. When you strip off that computer and bolt a carburetor to it, it instantly dumps raw, unburnt hydrocarbons out the exhaust. Sensory-wise, you know this exact feeling. The exhaust stinks of rich, eye-watering fuel. The car idles rough, and the exhaust leaves black soot all over your rear bumper. So why is this a problem? Because the moment an inspector puts an emissions sniffer up your tailpipe, you fail. You cannot legally pass a modern emissions test with a carburetted modern engine. It is physically impossible. On the surface, the marketing suggests it is the cheapest, easiest way to get your LS swap running. But underneath, many builders feel it is closer to an unregisterable, illegal modification that exists purely to sell cast aluminum parts for off-road use only. And if you think buying a brand new carburetor will make it run cleaner, number 2 is going to be a massive letdown. Number 2, the grey market clone carburetor. If you are going to use the Carby loophole, you need a carburetor. Australians used to trust legendary brands like Holly or Weber, but jump onto eBay or any massive online auto parts discounter today, and you will be flooded with suspiciously cheap, unbranded clone carburetors. They look virtually identical to the big brands. They are shiny, they are cheap, and they promise massive horsepower gains. But let us look at what is actually going on inside that cheap metal casting. To hit a price point of under $200, these overseas factories use incredibly cheap, porous aluminum alloys. The internal fuel metering blocks are drilled with zero precision. The rubber gaskets and floats are made from substandard materials that completely disintegrate the moment they touch modern Australian unleaded fuel, which often contains high levels of ethanol. What does that actually mean for your car? It means the floats get stuck. Instead of a fine atomized mist of fuel spraying into your engine, these cheap clones literally dump raw liquid petrol down the intake manifold. The throttle linkages bind up, causing the engine to rev uncontrollably when you pull up to a set of traffic lights. And worst of all, they leak. A fuel leak sitting directly above a glowing hot exhaust manifold is the exact reason so many classic cars end up as burning metal skeletons on the side of the M1 highway. The online listing promises bolt on performance and classic street machine sound. In reality, critics point out it is a highly dangerous, poorly cast fuel bomb relying on stolen designs to trick young builders. Because what you're about to hear changes the way you look at classic car registration entirely. Number 3, the pre-1976 exemption myth. If you spend 5 minutes on any Aussie car builder Facebook group, you will see people offering legal advice. The most common myth is the pre-1976 exemption. People firmly believe that if their car was built before the ADR 27A emissions laws came into effect in 1976, they can put absolutely any dirty, carburetted, massive horsepower engine into it and the government cannot touch them. And this is where things get genuinely uncomfortable. The authorities are fully aware of this myth and they are using it to crush builders. While a 1971 HQ Holden does not need catalytic converters from the factory, the moment you swap in an engine from a 2010 Commodore, the entire legal framework changes. The EPA and local transport authorities dictate that the engine must retain all of its factory emissions equipment. You think you are immune because you have an old chrome bumper car. But when you get pulled into a random highway patrol inspection station, they do not look at the chrome bumpers, they look at the engine block number. When they punch that number into their system and realize you have retrofitted a dirty carburetor onto a modern block, they do not just fine you, they issue a red label defect. Your car is grounded. You are not allowed to drive it home. It gets towed. And you are forced to submit the car to a brutal thousands of dollars emissions engineering test that it will mathematically never pass. The backyard forums suggest old cars are exempt from the rules, do whatever you want. But the reality of the law says it is a ruthless legal trap designed to catch out builders who did not read the Australian design rules. And if you thought historic plates would save you, number 4 takes it even further. Number 4. The club permit smokescreen. To avoid the brutal costs of full registration and strict annual roadworthy inspections, thousands of Australians are exploiting the club permit or historic registration schemes. You get cheap Rego, classic plates, and limited driving days per year. But the government has realized that the historic Rego system has become a massive dumping ground for highly illegal, unengineered, dangerous Carby Loophole engine swaps. Here is the crackdown nobody talks about. Authorities in states like Victoria and New South Wales are now actively auditing car clubs. They are demanding photos of the engine bays. They are sending inspectors to local weekend car meets and cars and coffee events. If you have a massive supercharged, carburetted V8 poking out the bonnet of your historic plated Ford Falcon, and you do not have an active engineering certificate to prove that exact setup is safe, the penalties are catastrophic. They do not just defect the car, they completely cancel your registration, and in some severe cases, they will heavily penalize the car club that signed off on your paperwork. You are trying to enjoy a Sunday cruise, but you are actually driving with a massive target on your back, relying on an outdated loophole that the police are actively trained to look for. On the surface, it looks like a cheap, easy way to enjoy your modified weekend cruiser. But underneath, many shoppers feel it is closer to a government honey trap that will ultimately get your classic car banned from the road forever. And finally, the most expensive scam in the entire automotive industry. Number 5. The engineering certificate sign-off scam. When you realize the police are cracking down, you do what everyone says you should do. You pay a registered automotive engineer to certify your engine swap. You hand over $3, $4, or even $5,000 to a private engineer who signs a piece of paper, attaches a blue modification plate to your engine bay, and tells you it is perfectly legal. But let us look at what is really happening in the shadows of the regulatory system. Not all engineers play by the rules. Some engineers will happily take your money and sign off on a Carby Loophole swap, knowing full well that it actually fails the strict letter of the Australian design rules. They issue the certificate and you drive away happy. But here is the terrifying part. Transport authorities actively audit these engineers. If an engineer is caught signing off on illegal emissions bypasses, the government revokes their license. And what happens to your car? The transport department sends a letter to your house, retroactively cancelling your engineering certificate. You paid thousands of dollars for legal peace of mind. But the government wipes it away with a single keystroke. You are left with an illegal car, an empty bank account, and an engine setup that you now have to completely tear out and rebuild from scratch. The shiny blue mod plate promises total immunity from the highway patrol. But the harsh reality is a highly volatile document that can be ripped away if the engineer cut corners to take your cash. Do you see the massive recurring pattern here? The entire modified car industry in Australia is shifting. They are selling you intake manifolds that fail emissions. They are flooding the market with cheap, dangerous, fuel-leaking carburettors. They are spreading legal myths on forums that end in your car getting towed. And they are charging you thousands for engineering certificates that are not worth the metal they are stamped on. This is not just about bad luck. It is a massive, systemic push by the government to force highly polluting, backyard-modified cars off the road, while the aftermarket industry continues to sell you parts that they know are effectively illegal to use on the street. But you do not have to give up your project car. Now let us talk about the Australian options that are actually worth your time and your money. If you want to build a tough, legal street car in Australia today, you have to abandon the Carby loophole. You must embrace modern fuel injection. Here are the absolute best, safer alternatives that will actually keep you on the road. First, look at Australian-made standalone ECU systems like Hultec or Motec. Forget the nightmare of stripping old factory wiring looms. Companies like Hultec now sell complete, plug-and-play wiring harnesses for almost every popular engine swap, from the Barra to the LS. These systems allow you to retain the modern fuel injection, run perfectly clean emissions, and tune the car to make massive, reliable horsepower without ever touching a dirty carburetor. Second, if you must have the old-school look, use a throttle body injection system like the Holley Sniper EFI. These systems look exactly like a classic carburetor and sit right on top of your engine, but they are actually highly advanced electronic fuel injection units. They use oxygen sensors to constantly monitor and adjust your fuel mixture, meaning the car starts perfectly on cold mornings, does not leak raw fuel, and runs infinitely cleaner than a traditional Carby. Third, only ever work with highly reputable, long-standing engineering signatories. Do not build the car first and ask for permission later. Before you buy a single bolt, pay a registered engineer for a consultation. Work with them to ensure your engine choice, your catalytic converters, and your fuel system will 100% meet the Australian design rules for your specific chassis. When you build it to their exact specifications, that engineering certificate becomes a genuine bulletproof shield against defect notices. Australian car culture has drifted dangerously far from reality. We used to value clever, innovative backyard engineering. Now we are blindly bolting cheap, dangerous cast metal clones onto modern engines, desperately trying to exploit legal loopholes that the government sealed shut a decade ago. You do not have to accept a defect notice. You do not have to let the highway patrol dictate your passion. Start reading the rule books. Stop buying the cheap shortcuts. Build your engine to the highest possible standard. Embrace clean electronic fuel injection technology and construct a car that commands respect on the street without poisoning the air behind it. If this video opened your eyes to the traps hiding in the modified car scene, tap the like button so we can expose this to more Aussie builders before they waste their money. If you want to stay one step ahead of the transport regulators and protect your hard-earned project car, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the rules of the road are changing faster than ever. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these engine swap traps shocked you the most today? Have you ever been defected for an old-school Carby swap, or did you get burned by a dodgy engineer? Let me know your story below.